it was really fun to hear your fitness journey because it kind of made me think about little bits and pieces that I maybe would have forgotten.
Hmm.
I was not really into fitness. So I remember being in 7th grade and we had a brand new PE teacher, and she was really strict. And she had us doing these, like, we had tests on things. Like, I got a D minus in gym.
What?
Yes, because I had to take a test on football, and I don't like I didn't realize I was supposed to pay attention, I guess, because it
Oh,
was
that's
gym.
such BS. And it's football. Like, how does that help us?
But she also, part of our grade was a fitness like log, and you got certain amount of points for doing certain things. And it was honestly like, if you looked at it today, it would be super biased. Like, she would have a half hour of tennis would be like half a point, but a half hour of basketball would be 3 points.
Wow.
And this is the time when I'm starting to be kind of obsessed with tennis. Like, my goal was to go to Spring Lake Public High School and play tennis on the public school tennis team. And I knew, like, okay, I'm running around like, that's not right. And I remember my mom just like making things up and signing it free. So my big first journey into the world of fitness would be with tennis. And it was, I played, I think this is still the case. I mean, we're old, we're part of the olds, so I'm not 100% sure, but a high school tennis team has 1st through 4th singles, and then they have 3 doubles teams. And honestly, like, 1st doubles players are better than the 4th singles player. But I was just better at singles. Like, that's kind of my personality, is to just do it myself, be responsible for myself. And I ended up as a freshman, a young freshman, 13-year-old, playing high school tennis against 18-year-old girls in the 4th position spot. And I learned a lot. Like, people hate playing slow. So, like, I would throw lobs. So this is 1992. We're not like, I mean, I feel like the kids now are in such amazing physical shape. And in 1992, a high school athlete was like in shape. But so I went to Norton Pines. I went to at least 6 hours of class a week for tennis. And then I would have private lessons. I was just obsessed. I loved it. And now what I know, I think I would be so much better. So I'm definitely like a classic type. You show me what you want me to do and I will copy it exactly. And at that time period, it was still like, oh gosh, I'm not going to remember his name, but I think his first name was Stan. It's an older guy that was in tennis that would be kind of the quintessential, like, if you hear the ball hit on the other side, he would like stop and like turn his body and do a certain like stroke. And that's just what I grew up doing. When you had somebody say you have pretty cleans, like, I have a very pretty game, very pretty, but that doesn't mean power. And it does not mean speed.
Yeah, I was thinking, sorry to interrupt, but like, I'm not sure a coach would tell a guy he had pretty cleans.
Right. I mean, if I was a coach, I would do it because pretty is just the word, pretty.
Yeah, maybe he does. I'm gonna keep my ears open.
Yeah, keep your ears open for that. You know, I didn't really do anything besides tennis, and I played golf, which, again, I had a really pretty swing. My short game sucks, and I have no patience. So there's that.
Golf,
When
I would imagine, is a patience game.
I mean, I'm
No?
good for 7 holes.
Mm.
So when you have to play 18,
Mm. That's a lot
ugh,
of holes.
it's boring, especially if like you suck at part of it, like if only part of it's fun. So, tennis was my jam. I loved it. And then I went to a really small undergrad, Division 4. Is that a thing? I don't know what we were, but we were small. And like, I think in my freshman class, there maybe were 1,200 people. So it's a small college. But I played tennis my first 2 years there. So I did get quite a bit better with the power and the speed and just having to really increase my level of competitiveness. But it was definitely a head game. And I feel like in the 90s, we didn't get a lot of like psychological help.
No, it wasn't a thing. It's a big thing now.
Yes. Like I probably could be like a professional tennis player if somebody would have just taught me like EFT tapping and helped me get over myself. Right, tennis is a lot of that. You're playing against yourself mostly. Like you don't hit your first serve in. What are you thinking to get your second serve in? Like, are you able to shake it off? What I find interesting now, like being part of the CrossFit community, is the lack of extra conditioning we did. We didn't do dick. Like we didn't go run. We didn't have time at the gym. It was just, that's crazy to me now. And then I got into running. Oh gosh, it must have been about 2000 or 2001. And that was after becoming vegan. And I got into running mainly because my best friend, who was going to UVA law school, I was going to go and move in with her in Charlottesville, Virginia. And honestly, there was that sense of competitiveness, like she's doing this thing and I'm just a teacher. So I was like, well, I'll start running too. Well, it became an obsession really quickly. And this is part of the journey where my health and wellness or fitness journey really got enmeshed or convoluted, if that's the right word, with an eating disorder. So the veganism and then the running all became a guise or a mask for anorexia and avoiding eating or over-exercising. But I really enjoyed running. And I think it's that endorphin piece of like, you get to check out for a while, get to be by yourself. So I was running shorter. The most I had run at that time was like 10 miles. And I think I did that like twice. But when I moved to LA, I feel like the job that I had was so stressful and I needed some sort of outlet and I didn't know what it was. And I just found LA Roadrunners, which was it's a really cool organization of, I think there were like 2,000 people that would meet down in Venice Beach every Saturday morning. I mean, I would have a hard time getting up for work, but I would get up for that. And it's because I just was fueled by the people that I was around. So you would get there and we would do a group stretch and then they would break into different time groups. And I knew I was most comfortable running a 10-minute mile, especially if I'm going to run a marathon. And so I did all this. I ran hundreds of miles in these 2x2 groups of people all around the like Santa Monica, Venice. What's just south of Venice?
Marina Del Rey.
Marina Del Rey. Thank you. Like we would run down to where the airplanes would go across.
El Segundo.
Yes.
So you go Marina Del Rey, Playa Del Rey, El Segundo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was a really interesting learning experience because I was around people that were older than me that had been into running for a really long time. And I didn't really know much about running besides you put your pair of shoes on and you just go. And I'd learned about like fuel. So having to have something to put in your body. I learned about how many people were just like popping Aleve or Advil, like left and right. And then I also realized the people that were committed were adrenaline junkies. And it wasn't just about the LA Marathon. It was about, I'm going to do this one and I'm going to go do this one. And I have to do St. George because St. George is all downhill. And then I'm going to get qualified and I'm going to go to Boston. And then they were all like going to do tries. And then they were doing Ironman. Like it was always one more thing. And that was just interesting to realize like I had that mentality of what's the next thing? Just sign me up. Like when I got Finn and he was old enough, we went to agility class. Well, okay, then we go to step 2. Okay. And then we start competing. Okay. Like, why am I I don't need to compete in agility with my dog. But the running, I've learned so much just even looking back at my running history of my motivation for running. And I still remember, I don't know if you remember this, but after I ran LA and it was awful because that year it was like 100 degrees. I'm exaggerating. It was 98.
Oh my God.
And it was
really?
downtown. It was miserable that year. And they had the most medic calls they've ever had. I could feel like my stomach was extended and I could feel like sloshing, like,
oh my God.
And one of my teacher friends was going through massage therapy school at the time, and she had just taken like this hot and cold stones class. So she brought over cold stones, and ran the race on Sunday. This is on Wednesday, and she put this ice cold stone on my heart, and supposedly they like fall off when they're done, and it fell off like so quick, and she grabbed it. She's like, oh my God, this is room temperature. Like your body has so much heat in it. But I wasn't done. Like that one sucked. So immediately I signed up for San Diego, which was like not even like 2 months away. It was a much better marathon because it was overcast and blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
It's never hot in San Diego.
No.
At least, yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
But I just learned so much about myself with like my drive and my discipline. And I mean, yeah, after I think I finished both of those, we like maybe we were shopping on the promenade or went out for sushi or something. And you mentioned that like I walked differently, like my chest, my shoulders were back. And it really was partly from doing a marathon and realizing like not everybody does this. And I just finished 2, and wow, I am actually not a piece of shit.
It is so wow.
Like it was really, yeah, that's really taught me a lot. And then we moved to upstate New York, and I ended up joining a Bally's Fitness. And it was the most, so you said janky the other day. It was janky. So janky. But that's where I actually started lifting more weights. And they might have been like low weight, super high rep. But I started seeing like different definition in my body. And I was still on this vegan kick. So I don't think that I would have ever gained as much muscle as I could have. But so I lifted for like a year of like lifted and like did, my cardio. But then I went to go play tennis, and the racket was like so light. And I was like whipping the ball. Yes. Thinking like, why didn't somebody tell me to go lift weights?
Mhm.
But that I was a gym rat. I was there, so I was unemployed for 9 months. I was at the gym like 3 hours a day. Super problem. But I had fun.
Yeah.
And I did run when I lived in upstate New York, and that was honestly, that was so refreshing to go from LA
Mm.
to hills and colors and like quiet.
Yeah.
That was really cool. And then I ran the Chicago Marathon, and I kind of stopped running after that.
Mm.
Like
So
stopped. Like that
you
was it.
did 3 marathons.
I've done 3 marathons.
Wow.
Yes, and I did get. I always wanted to hit 4 hours and 30 minutes, and I got that. I don't remember exactly, but it was a little less than that on my last one. My brother did have to
Good.
kind of like get me over the line, but
It's okay. That's really good.
I just can't ever explain, I think, how much I learned about myself with the determination that exists in my body.
Mhm.
You know, when things get hard, I just sometimes have to remember, like, yeah, remember when you got to like mile 15 and you had to turn around? Like, there were some times when it's like, I don't want to keep going. And I didn't run fast. So that is weird when you meet people at the CrossFit gym who have done marathons and they're like so much faster than I was.
Well,
But again,
most people you meet have never done a marathon, and I like can't even imagine doing a marathon. I don't think I've ever run more than about 6 miles.
really?
Mhm.
I feel like you must. I don't know.
No, when? I was a sprinter. I was on cross
Yeah.
country. I was on cross country 2 years, and that's when I think I probably
Okay.
ran about 6 miles, but maybe 7 once. I don't know, but definitely nothing more than that.
Well, I learned through meeting all those crazy one-uppers with their adrenaline junkiness. We would meet at Santa Monica High School on Thursday nights and do sprint training, which honestly, I hated it, but it did improve my gait. It improved so much. And then when I decided to do the Chicago Marathon, I downloaded a program. I think it was a 20-week program. And I went to the track every
Mhm.
week and did sprints on my own.
Sure.
And it helped so much. I don't think I was born with quick twitch muscles. Like, I have them.
Yeah.
But then anyway, so when I moved to Chicago, I got a dog thinking, oh, I'll run with my dog. And I learned that with probably every dog, but for this particular breed, you don't want to force them to run on pavement until their growth plates are done. And so, okay, you walk them and let them run at their whatever they want. And I was so stressed with what was going on, and I just lost so much weight and muscle mass just doing walking.
Mhm.
And the anorexia was at an all-time high. I didn't have the capacity to like work out. So walking was my best workout. And I did a lot of it because Finn needed, I walked probably 2 hours a day when I lived in Chicago with Finn. And then I moved to Michigan, and again, I just walked. So you remember my little apartment that butted up against the woods that were the dunes that led to Lake Michigan. And that was a workout. But again, that emotional stress was so much that I had zero capacity to like have fitness beyond walking. And I remember people saying like, oh, do you run with your dog? And I'm like, have you seen him? There's no way I could keep up with how he wants to run.
Mhm.
Like my run would be his preferred like stroll. And then John and I went through fertility stuff, and I probably would have really benefited from some sort of gym outlet, but there was just nothing around. It was a small town. There were no CrossFit boxes. By the end when we lived, there was some sort of boot camp place, but I don't know. I guess at that time, like it wasn't big to like have these like smaller little community gyms. And then we moved to Denver, and I was old enough that anorexia just, it wasn't working anymore. And then it
Wasn't working for you.
wasn't working for me.
Finally.
And having gone through 5 years of fertility treatments, my body was so different that I didn't know, like just starving myself for a week didn't do anything like it used to. So I didn't know what to do. And I'm not sure where I was getting this information, but I knew I needed to eat. Like I knew shakes, like, you know, those kind of like quick trick, whatever, was not going to be for me. I needed to be able to exercise, move my body, and I needed to fuel my body. I did start going to a gym, and I didn't have like any personal training. It was just me showing up. And I would take what my brother was doing. So my brother lived in Manhattan, and he went to a personal trainer. So I would just take, I was always on like a 1-day delay of what he did.
But it was free.
It was free. I will say that this gym did have, I joined it because they had tennis, and I just didn't vibe and fit in, I guess. They had Pilates, and in a way I enjoyed that because it was on the reformers and stuff, but the main thing I liked about Pilates was I never had time to think about myself at all. Mm-hmm. So in that time, like my mom had just passed, and we had decided after 5 years we weren't going to try to have a family. So there's a lot of like heavy emotions, and having something like Pilates where you're on a reformer where you've got to think about like 25 things was helpful. Like I did not want to go running because I would be able to think. And I went to like a diet type nutrition place, mainly because my sister-in-law was going there, my mother-in-law was going there, and I saw what my sister-in-law had to eat, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so much food. And she's like, yeah. And I knew instinctively I have to do that because I can't just I'm going to drink 2 shakes and eat a dinner. Like that's not good for my anorexic self. And that regimen of like, I had to go weigh in and check in or whatever, but I had to eat so much food, and it wasn't vegan food. And I felt good. Like I was having like regular periods with no PMS, and my mood was so much better, and it was amazing. And then I joined the Y, which was really close to my house, and I started doing what is that little class? Les Mills body pump. It's fun. It's like they've got tracks of music, and it was fun. I felt like I was getting in shape. And then I met this woman, Victoria, through networking. And I decided I'd work out with her husband. So Victoria and Kyle are from Manhattan, and they still have clients there. And they're personal trainers. They worked at some fancy gyms. She is a former fitness competitor, so bikini competitions. And Kyle is a former kettlebell competitor, and he was on the Olympic team for rings in the gymnastics world. I worked out with him 2 days a week, and I could see a huge change in my body just with those 2 days because he was so knowledgeable about putting programming together, and that it wasn't like you have to do a gajillion reps to like do this thing. And that's kind of where I was introduced to this like idea of Tabata / CrossFit stuff, because we did tons of kettlebells. We did a lot of CrossFit movements. Their life kind of changed and he stopped doing the personal training. And my brother's like, I think that you really need to try CrossFit, because I think that you're going to love this like community, and they're all into like Whole30 and like having like cookouts or whatever. You just need this. And there was a really close gym to me, and I joined, and automatically I was like, I suck and I am coming back tomorrow.
Sorry, what month was this? Do you remember? It was 20, I know we both started 2018, right?
Yes, it was like August.
Okay. So it was also like your brother told you about it, and then we met in Colorado for my thing, my work retreat, and then I literally had been doing it just a couple months by then, but I was like, it really only took like 6 weeks, and I was like, oh my God, I have muscles.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there was that too.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, if Annette's going to go doing this, I should not be terrified. Like, and the gym I joined ended up not being a great fit. But again, with the learning of like, about my personality of wanting to be a perfectionist, wanting to get it right, being scared to do something unless I get it right, or not understanding what my own lane is, right? When you're in a class, when you're 40 something and you're in a class of 20 somethings, your lane looks really different sometimes. And learning how to accept that and embrace it and feel like, you know what? It doesn't matter where I am. I'm here and I'm cheering on everybody else. I got back to CrossFit after taking a year off about a year ago. So it was like November 1-ish that I got back to it. And I think it must have been February of 2021. And it was post the open, which my gym really puts emphasis on. And I was thinking, I'm never going to be a CrossFit athlete, but damn, I love going to the gym. I should do a bikini competition because I'm going to be 44. So now I'm into this cool world of I'm doing several WODs a week, working out with people at the gym. And then I go into open gym and I do my own bodybuilding workouts. And the person I had met years ago, she's my coach. So I learn a lot about nutrition with her, and then she sets up programming. And I feel like I always have so much more to learn about fitness, but my understandings is so different than it ever was. Like our bodies are just these amazing machines that we can train to do different things. And one of my biggest pieces I think about fitness, my fitness journey, is food. Because I've always loved to move my body. And had I had like CrossFit available when I was 17, I probably would have done it. But this understanding of food being fuel, and the difference I've seen in my own body, like we can share pictures at some point, just, I'm increased at over 1,000 calories and my weight didn't change, but my body composition looks different. Like that's mind blowing. And it also translates to the gym. Like I started eating more, and 2 weeks later, I'm like finishing workouts I would have never finished. And I'm adding weight where I never would have added it. And there's a huge part of me that really wants to share with the world of like, hey, we've been super brainwashed about how we should be feeding our bodies. And it's been a big lie, and it's kind of sad because if anything, we're like depleting ourselves and making ourselves small when we could be fueling ourselves and making ourselves mighty. That was a really long one. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Wow.
Because I had totally forgotten about Binghamton, where I was like a gym rat for 3 years. Like,
oh, that's what you had forgotten until
I totally
yeah.
forgot that. Well, the gym was not even a half mile away, and we had one car, so I'd walk there.
I have a scar on my knee from Binghamton. Biking down a hill. It was very exhilarating.
Oh, they've got some big hills there.
God, I wore a helmet because I really wiped out. Okay, so wow. So if you're still listening, dear listener, our final segment is Ask Anne and Annette. But since this is our first day, nobody's asked us anything.
No.
But if you'd like to, we've got email address. We'll have a little outro thing, so that will tell you what to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I was going to mention, I did recently just put all of my CrossFit, my workout clothes in a Roy G. Biv setup.
And you don't think you have problems anymore?
I have a lot of problems.
Yeah, I guess you never said you don't think you do. I just didn't think you did until now.
The sports bras are Roy G. Biv and the shirts,
Whoa.
not the shorts and not the
The shorts
leggings.
would be too complicated.
Tell me about it.